Hey everyone, evening. We have got an epic duo on tonight, and tonight is all about the men, because we don't want the men to feel neglected in our world. Hey guys, just waiting. Here they are. Hang on 1 minute. Here come the boys. Yay!
Hey, hello.
I've got two of you tonight. Yes.
Yeah, two for the price of one.
Huh?
Two in the frame.
I know. Do you know what? It feels more like KK now. You know, that whole one-on-one talks have just been a bit,
Good night.
a bit mainstream. And I bought wine.
Oh, we just got water.
Oh. Do you drink or not drink?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do. Yeah.
But I didn't even think about a drink actually.
Nah, not. Yeah.
Serious stuff. A serious chat. So yeah, Ahmed Juma and David Chambers. Sorry, I got stuck on that. I got stuck on the Juma then.
Oh, normally it's the first name people get stuck on.
No,
Yeah.
I grew up out in the Middle East. I grew out in the Middle East and in Egypt for 4 years, and then Kuwait for 3 years. And all my friends were locals, and I think every other friend of mine was Ahmed, which some people might take as a racist comment, but they literally were.
It is what it is.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Exactly. It is what it is. And together you are the authentic dating series, which is sort of, before apps and, the whole kind of online side, with you two were sort of, this is it. And, the real communications and the real authentic relationships, which is kind of like my world, that actual human interaction, having real life conversations.
Yeah.
And meeting people in real life scares me.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. Good times. Yeah.
So how? Just explain the how and the why you both got into into it and working together, and how it all started.
Yeah. So
Then we'll get down to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, Dave and I, we have actually like vastly different experiences around dating growing up. I was that typical shy character, and I went through my own journey to find my own authority, to be able to find my own voice, to speak and understand what I desire out of a relationship, out of sex, out of love, out of life. And that journey took me towards being authentic and learning this message of authenticity and the power that and ease that life becomes when one is authentic. And so that kind of, for me, is why I really believe in authenticity. And
Yeah, I guess for me it was, I came from a slightly different school. We've actually been friends we were school friends, so we've known each other for over 20 years.
Oh, cool.
So I knew him when he wasn't as confident and comfortable as he's now. I grew up being, reasonably confident, very comfortable.
Were you the opposite? Were you the real shagger out there?
Yeah, basically. That was my early 20s especially. And I kind of got to a point where it was very empty, just like having lots of sex, like it was fun, but it was very empty. And a lot of men never get to that point because they never get to have that much sex and that much variety and that much choice, but they become very empty. And I just went down a path of just learning about my own emotions and connecting with other people, and found that was so much more fulfilling than having, sleeping with 5 different women in a week. And it's led me to a beautiful relationship and beautiful open relationship. So it's like I've been able to even design the sort of relationship that really works for me and what I really love.
And then when was that kind of light bulb moment when you went, right, together we will do this?
Yeah. Well, I think the thing with David and I, for some reason in our life, we've always been obsessed around dating and around like figuring out like what's good, what's not good, discussing our dates and our interactions and our experiences and sharing. And we travel together a lot and have had loads of experiences. And what we found over time is that people would come to us. So we used to coach like 10 years ago. And then we stopped for a while. We went on with our lives like normal human beings. We fit into the world. No one would know of our past as coaches. But nonetheless, our friends and they would come to us with maybe some problems that their friends had. And so then we just be like, well, Dave, we keep getting this. Like, maybe we should do something with this information that we had. And we sat and we discussed it and we tried some ideas. And I think, Dave, you said, like, podcasts.
Yeah.
It makes sense. So, and I was like, yeah, podcasts. We
Yeah.
like talking. So we started a podcast, late 2018.
Yeah.
In this here room. We launched it and we were looking at it on Spotify. We couldn't believe it. We were like, what are people going to think?
Yeah, I know that conversation.
Yeah, and that really got everything started again, because then we've got out of the podcast. People really loved it. The messages, the positive feedback was incredible, and people were just loving that authentic message and the realness. And we were just saying that, look, a lot of dating advice is about avoiding rejection and avoiding fear
and manipulation.
Exactly, and that doesn't create real connection.
And your podcast is doing really well. It's done really well. It's great, and also to me it's interesting because I always say it's a minefield for men out there. I to me too. I always say I feel so sorry for men, and everyone just slams me down and goes, "Don't feel sorry for them. Fuck them." I genuinely, in the world that it is, it's a minefield, because also every woman's different, and it's like, do you open the door? Do you not open the door? Do you offer to pay the bill? Do you not? Do you message? Do you not? When do you send a dick pic? Do you not send a dick? You know what I mean? It literally, I don't want to be that.
Yeah.
What do you find are what are the main things that guys would come to you? I know there's loads, but are there the real themes that pretty much everyone that comes to you says, I need help on this bit?
I think the first thing is meeting women, like where to meet women, or more specifically, I think men are like, where can I meet women who are the sort of women I want to meet? And that's the main one, like meeting women, which I guess is the kind of the if you're thinking of it like the entry point is you need to be meeting some women and interacting with them. And then I think normally the second thing is around conversation and connection. It's like, how do I get to know them and for them to get to know me? And then I think the next thing is like, how do I get into a relationship or know if someone is right for me to be in a relationship with? Those, I'd say, like the three biggest pain points that men suffer from. Yeah.
And what's your advice on like approaching women? Because obviously there's the whole online side, which we'll get onto, but like that out and about, well, it's slightly harder now at the moment. And I won't say unprecedented time, because if I hear that expression one more time, I think I'll wobble. But that actually just approaching a woman or a girl you don't know, and what advice do you have for that? Because a lot of men are really nervous about doing that, because they don't want the girl to suddenly like turn around and throw the drink on them and claim harassment. What are your tips around that?
I guess for me is, I think you got to be aware of your surroundings and your location, because that has a huge bearing. Like if you are walking down a reasonably quiet street in central London, it's very different to if you're in a busy club, right? So you need to be aware of your surroundings, right? And there needs to be some kind of social calibration. It's like, okay, if you're walking down the street, then you probably want to be able to stop her and keep a safe distance, right? Whereas if you're in a bar or a club and it's that loud and noisy, you want to make sure she can hear you. So you need to be aware of your surroundings. One of the things is bearing in mind how she's going to feel you approaching her. I think that's something that guys don't always think about, because they're so locked in their own fear and worry about the rejection or how they're going to be perceived. They forget that they're approaching another human being who has thoughts and feelings and emotions and has lived a life, right? So if you are going up to go on the street, this might be very strange for her, for a man to do this. So if you're aware that that's how she may feel, you can then calibrate how you're going to be. You're going to be like, this is kind of odd for her. So I'm going to stand a bit further back so I seem normal. And I'm actually going to start a normal conversation, because I've done something strange. Now I need to just be like, I'm totally normal. And it's, something that we do. I think one of the big things as well is pluck up the courage. Pluck up the courage to do it. It's always worthwhile. I met one of my ex-girlfriends many moons ago outside Covent Garden Station. I was going to the station to go meet some friends, and I saw her, and I was like, I just have to go and talk to her very quickly. Half an hour later, we're still talking at the station. We exchanged numbers, and I went on my way. And it's incredibly worthwhile to just approach women. So that's about what I say. Anything?
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is, and I think this is a big problem for a lot of men, is actually getting comfortable with conversation and having conversation, having some key tips around how to have conversation, and actually listening to the other person. Such a key thing is to listen.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing when David says about plucking up the courage. That also includes being just being out of your own head, and like being present to the woman, to the person that you're speaking to, and actually listening to what you're saying and having a conversation with a human being, as opposed to like thinking I'm just in this to get a number. Actually making the effort to connect. And I think that's a big piece that's missing so often with men, is that we're so goal orientated. We're just like, right, we want to get in there and get out, because we're actually, sometimes it's driven by nerves, right? Yeah. It's like, I just want to get in and get this over and done with, and then move on to the next thing. And actually having a conversation like we are now, we're having a conversation, and that is, that brings the comfort. If you feel comfortable, she's going to feel comfortable.
And it is true that the listening thing, because I know I've been back in the day, like on dates, and I thought, I go, we were talking loads, and afterwards you leave and you go, yeah, but it was all about him. He was kind of talking at me, and I'd say something, and then he would straight back. And it was only when you really look, you think, it might have seemed like you were having a conversation, but I would say exactly that, is ask questions. Actually feign, even if you're pretending, interest in what, because us women, we would like to feel listened to.
Yeah. I think we all do this. We did a workshop on the weekend, and one of the big things we said is, like, if you want to connect with someone, really listen to them. Like, listen to the words, listen to what their body's doing, listen to the emotion behind it, and respond to all of those things. And if you're listening to someone and things don't seem in line with each other, ask about that. Like, if someone is talking about a happy story, but their face and their body doesn't look happy, you can be like, hey, like, you just told a really good story, but what's up with that? Is there something more to that? And they go, well, actually, yeah, there was. And then you get into more of the feeling and the emotion of what was going on for her. And that's how we connect with each other, where we can like step into that empathy and by empathizing and understanding.
Yeah. And what's your advice on, because one thing that holds people back from just approaching strangers, and is that fear of rejection. And you've already kind of fast forwarded in your head that you're going to go up there, they're going to tell you to fuck off, you're going to be rejected, so what's the point? So I'm not even going to bother. It kind of, it's kind of, you've already in your head made up the end point. So what's your advice on doing that? Because that comes on, being vulnerable, isn't it? And there's that whole thing on kind of, actually, yes, everyone's opening up now and going, it's good to be vulnerable. That's what's important in life. And as soon as you are and you let it out, actually you feel a whole, lot better about it. But yeah, what was your advice on that, of like with your clients, you call them clients, or the people you help, on just handling rejection and dealing with it and turning it into a positive, to be able to move on and not go into a dark hole of nobody loves me?
Yeah, I think there's we tend to, as men as well, we tend to put so much emphasis on that one interaction and hoping like this is the one, and I think most of the time is we're projecting already that the person is a certain way, and we already know who they are. So before we approach, we're like, oh, this is the perfect person, but we don't actually know who they are yet. And so one of the ways in which you avoid that feeling is by going, actually, I'm going to find out who this person is, and start in that way. And there's so much of fear is built into this mind projection piece, where we're like, right, it's going to go this way, it's going to go that way. When actually it's a real curiosity, bringing curiosity back to approaching, to starting new conversations, and really living in that world. So being vulnerable, we say, like, being vulnerable, it isn't just about like expressing yourself, it's also in your actions that you take. Being vulnerable in that. And like we often say about vulnerability as well, is that vulnerability is, in our eyes, is super confidence. You're so confident in being exposed that you're just like, you know what, I'm just going to say it. So you go over and you say hello, you take that chance, and some people are nice and some people are rude, or some people are busy, and we don't know what's going on until we actually take the step.
That's the thing, you can't control it, can you? You can't control it. You can control your thing, but the way, it took me a long time to realise that one on all levels.
Yeah.
So like doing this live, for example, right? We don't know what questions are going to come up. Dave and I have no idea, but we're like what we call the cliff face of vulnerability. We're just like, right, let's.
What's she gonna? Warming up.
Yeah.
Sit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Do you know what's funny? Some people, when we do the live, sometimes we'll be like, "Well, what? Can we have a list of the questions?" I'm like, "No," but they know. They can't get know me well enough to go, well, these might be some of the questions she's going to ask, but she completely goes off on tangent, and depending on what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So
we're happy to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
I think like the last during the last 5 months, what because obviously there hasn't been the people out and about and having that kind of face-to-face stuff. What's been the most sort of questions? What are the questions that you've been asked, and like what's the biggest anxieties within man that you've seen in the last 5 months?
I think the biggest anxiety is like, how do I meet women in this new world? How do I meet women? You know, because I can't go to bars, I can't go to clubs, I can't talk to anybody. I'm not meant to talk to anyone I don't know. I'm not meant to get meant to get too close to anybody. So how do I meet people? There seems to be a big anxiety about that. And also, I think one of the other things is, and this kind of has tailed off now, that people can do in-person dates, but when we were in full lockdown, it was like, how do I create chemistry, sexual chemistry on a Zoom call? That was another question that kept coming up.
And also, how do you keep that going until the lockdown is over, until we can meet again? That was another issue. Like worrying.
And what was your advice on that? Because there's still a lot of people out there who they don't want to go out, or they can't, or they're working from home, so they're not really out and about in London like they were, where they could kind of randomly have drinks on a Friday and meet people. So they are sort of in the middle of nowhere, all over the shop. Just talking about myself here, just drinking. My husband's downstairs, but I just need humans in my life. But yeah, so what would you say to people about that? Like keeping it, knowing the chemistry and kind of keeping it going, and having those chats without
I would say is like it's a lot about being playful for me. It's like actually having fun and not always feeling like, oh my God, there's something magical and special I have to do to keep this going. You can just like keep connecting with someone, keep getting to know someone, be playful. And if you want to create that sexual tension, it's not that much different to you on a date. You just don't have the kind of option of touch, right? So you can still you can flirt with your words, with teasing and playfulness and banter. And like, we had a client, he done some great stuff on his Zoom dates where he would send women a cocktail that he loved. So he'd go on a Zoom date with a girl. She was in London or whatever radius. He would get.
Sorry, you had me at cock. I had to link the two words there to realise that what you were talking about. Yeah.
We actually did suggest to him at one point. We're like, why don't you, after a few dates, just you send her a sex toy, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, one of those.
One of the dates. One of the remote ones is a good idea. Yeah. But even just a surprise, like little things like that is like actually having surprise and fun. And it doesn't have to be this stiff thing of like, oh my God, we're on a Zoom. You can take people for a walk, even something as simple as, instead of the kind of classic dick pic that's unsolicited, right? You could just send a voicemail of just like moans and groans, like just something to leave someone else's imagination to kind of carry on to what was really happening there.
Yeah, do you think people, we found it with like our virtual stuff, a lot of people have been doing it and coming to events and who would never have done it or come to an actual real life one, because they have that feeling they're doing it at home and behind a screen. So do you think it kind of adds a layer of confidence to people, because they don't when you're face to face with someone, it kind of, you're even more vulnerable, so to speak. But actually, if it's behind a screen, if there's a screen involved and you're sat on your sofa in your pajamas, like my bottom half is, it kind of, it's more, you know what I mean? That you kind of have slightly more bucket attitude, and if at any point you're feeling a bit embarrassed, you just hit turn off.
Yeah, because you can also you've got complete control in the relationship, and like if you're just on a screen, at any point you want to end this conversation, or if you never want to talk to this person again, you can just block them and move on with your life, right? That's an option. And it's like it's funny you mentioned the online parties you had, because I went to a couple of them actually with my partner during the lockdown, and it was interesting to when you're on a screen, like how do people act differently? It's like, are people more adventurous because they know that they're not they don't know they're being directly watched because they can't see the eyes, the eye contact being made. It's just a kind of screen. So I think people can be more adventurous, but it's just a case of like plucking up the courage, because that's a lot of the time is that we want to do something. We really desire, we really yearn to do something, but yet we're so concerned about how it's going to be received. But if you're sending something with like care and love for the other person, and like with a feeling into what they want and need, then you're not going to go wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah. And also you can get creative, can't you? It's sort of when you are in lockdown and there isn't much, it's, you know, it's very easy to meet up and you're in a bar and have a few drinks and suddenly, you know, suddenly it's sort of, you're seeing the rose-tinted spectacles come on and the horn comes out and you're like, I just want to, you know what I mean? It kind of, and I don't really care what you're saying or the words that are coming out of your mouth. It's like, you know, it's very easy to do on that in real life. But when you've got this, you know, the screen and you're doing the virtual dating and stuff, you don't have that option. So you kind of got to make a bit more of an effort.
Exactly. And I think people are willing to, like, even I think I was reading somewhere that, you know, obviously a lot of like online sex shops seeing huge increases in purchases, but I also saw there was a lot of purchases of underwear as well during lockdown. And I imagine that was for couples who were trying to spice things up, singles who equally maybe wanted to take some photos of themselves to send to whoever they were talking to. It's like, you know, things like this, things that sometimes are forgotten when you're in person, is like you said, just be more creative with what's around.
Yeah, toys went up something like 400% or something.
Wow.
Liverpool apparently had the biggest increase. They're just that. You're welcome.
Wow.
And on just anxieties, what do you think the biggest sort of male anxiety is in dating at the moment, just in general? So the biggest thing that kind of men worry about that maybe women don't really realise?
Well, one of them that comes up quite a bit with the guys that we talk to is the fear of making the wrong choice, of getting into a relationship that they're going to be unhappy with. I mean, it's such a big one that actually it's something that David and I focus on as part of our message in, you know, helping people to create happy relationships. And a big part of what it is to be authentic is to attract people that, you know, you're compatible with, as opposed to just attracting a partner that doesn't mesh with you, and then you end up in a relationship that you don't really want to be in, or a superficial thing for a superficial reason. Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
But sorry, on that one, if it's not just sort of about being flexible and going, well, I can come out.
Yeah, and I think it kind of speaks into how men think they should be, right?
Yeah.
Men should be, you know, we did a recording last night with a guy that's been running men's groups for like 18 years. And we were talking about how as men, we're kind of shown these images of men that are always right, always know what to do, never make mistakes. And when they do make mistakes, we absolutely fucking brutally punish them for it. Like, you know, look at the media, you know, when a man makes a mistake or anyone makes a mistake, it's just like everyone's like berating them, telling how terrible they are. So it puts men into that place of being like, fuck, I don't want to make any mistakes, and I don't want to make a mistake in a relationship because it could potentially ruin my life.
Yeah.
And there's this idea that it's like a man also feels often like if his word is his bond. Like a good man believes his word is his bond. So if he goes back on his word, which would be, you know, getting in a relationship and 2 weeks later deciding it's not right, would feel like he's going back on his word. So that's a big thing. And I think the other one is fear of rejection, you know, fear of rejection, because it, like you said, it touches all parts of your life. But in dating, it actually touches every aspect along the way. You know, it's when you first speak to a woman, when you get into conversation, when you ask her for a number, when you first go on a date. And when you first sleep together, even afterwards, the rejection that can happen there. I know it happens for women as well. It's like you sleep together once, and maybe she turns around and goes, "I don't want to see you again." The rejection for a man there is because he's been vulnerable with himself, he's been seen, and you know that happens after that. He feels like he's less of a man.
And because people always say, you know, is it wrong to sleep with someone on the first date, or is it not? If it's, you know, I just say go with it.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't. I always just think if a guy likes the girl, you know, whether she puts it on the first date or doesn't, if he likes her, he likes her.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think the thing is we've created this meaning about it. Like, oh, if you sleep with someone the first day, you are, and then insert whatever you want. And it's the meaning actually that does us a lot of damage, because it's not real. It's just something we've made up about this thing happening, right? Like I've slept with many women on the first date before. Some became my girlfriend, some didn't. Some were long term, some didn't. It doesn't necessarily mean like because someone slept with you the first time, it means something. But we keep teaching each other that
I think
this means something.
it's probably more of a female mindset, I think, is that the slut shaming and that actually it's been all right, you know, for men to do that. It's kind of, no, there isn't the judgment. A lot better now, but I think that's kind of decades for my generation. And you know, the ones, you know, every sort of 30 plus, you have it really ingrained in you that you shouldn't do that, and that you're a slut. So it kind of, it's more on that, and on the on communicating, because of that kind of, not just the rejection, but wanting to be kind. And I know a lot of guys, I've got a lot of guy friends, I'm like, just let them go, you know, you're not into it, and they don't want you, they just sit there, and I'm like, it's a year later, and I'm like, you're being even more of an arsehole. Why not just sort of, you know, you can't say man up anymore, but it is that kind of, you know, what's your advice on that? Because I think there is that tendency, men more so, of not wanting to upset the other person. It's not right, but you don't want to upset them.
Well, one of the biggest lessons I've ever learned in my life, and it's worth remembering all the time, is whenever you try to avoid upsetting someone, you end up upsetting them. Like, especially if you find yourself trying to avoid upsetting someone, soon you're going to upset them, because they're going to find out, and it'll be So it's you're better off, like, you know, having the straight chat, but, you know, compassionate. I think, you know, it's important to be compassionate and understanding and aware, you know, as you treat people like you want to be treated, you know, at the end of the day. Like that's the main thing. Don't avoid upsetting people.
Life doesn't work very well if you avoid upsetting people.
You got to rip the band-aid off, haven't you? But just be kind.
And just be like,
and you can't control the reaction, can you? You can't control their feelings.
And that's the problem. It's like so many people are afraid of they don't want conflict. That's what it is. They're trying to avoid conflict. And in doing so, you create conflict. So it's the same thing. But the truth is, it's like what I also get a sense of is also people trying to be perfect all the time. They just want to move through life without any friction, and that's just not how life works. This is how you learn. You know, sometimes friction occurs, but at the same time, then maybe next time you won't get into a relationship like that, where you think, oh, I'm not that interested. And that's a big one, especially David and I, former serial daters. We've had this a lot. We've dealt with breakups a lot, and it's never pleasant. Like, it's never pleasant to have to go for a breakup. So, you know, eventually, like, do I really want to fucking do this? Like, so I really want to continue living this life.
Yeah, and I think also one of the things that guys don't remember is, like, it's very easy to, you know, as a man sometimes to lead a woman on, because you're like, oh, maybe this could be something, but you kind of know. You're like, okay, this isn't going to go anywhere. You keep sleeping with her, maybe she's enjoying it, you enjoy it, but in your mind you're like, this isn't really going to go anywhere. And the longer you drag it out, the worse it gets. You know, it's much better to say early on, look, I've had a great time, I've had a few great dates together, but I just don't see this going anywhere. Like, you know, these, and also to a certain degree is try and be honest and tactful and kind in what you say. And, you know, too often we've heard oh, it's not you, it's me. You know, and I know sometimes it really is true, but if you're honest with people,
it is you. You're not feeling it. It's kind of this. I'm a mathematician. I've always been known, and I'm always gone, well, dumb, and I've always been the one that's dumped, because I'm like, I hate failure. So I've always been like, I will make this work, even though like 99% I know is just wrong in every shape or form. I will see that 1% and go, hey, there's 1% chance, which means I can increase that 1%, and I'm going to make it work even. But I would come out going, well, this plus this equals that didn't work. So me plus him doesn't work. Next kind of thing. It's sort of
as well, you know.
Not take it personally.
Because if someone says to you, I don't think it's going to work between us. This is about what they need and what their desires are in life and what they need in a relationship. And it doesn't mean that you are broken. It just means that you two pieces of jigsaw don't quite fit together. You know? Yeah,
exactly. And you've got one life, so why would you want to compromise? You know. Absolutely. So too many people try and get, you know, they get the super glue out, they get the scissors out, they're like, we're going to make this. my like triangular piece is going to fit with your circle somehow.
Smash those holes in.
Yeah.
Exactly. And on talking about smashing, sexual performance as well. That's a huge, a big anxiety on that. And I think a lot of women don't realise actually how much anxiety men have on that front. Because actually, even though we fake it way more on that front, it's easy for us to fake it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, performance anxiety, and you've got to get it up.
Yeah.
So what on that front do you get? What's your advice on that? Because there's also lots of guys going, I want to last longer, and I'm like, why would you want to last really long? Because women go numb. So
That's the truth as well.
I want to go for hours. No, thank you.
We actually had this with a client recently as well, and we were talking about this, and always the answer, especially if it's a same night thing or a one night stand, whether that could be a little bit different, but like if it's with someone that you've been talking to, it's talk about it. Talk about what's coming up for you. Talk about like if you have a concern around performance, especially. Because vulnerability, it's actually the human side. But as men, we get so wrapped up in this idea that we're supposed to be perfect and we're supposed to perform. Mostly, I think, from porn, right? It's that pornage. It's a mirage. It's a pornage of how life is supposed to be. And actually,
you're meant to go for hours and 20 different positions and make them come 10 times. I mean, literally, honestly. Porn has a lot to answer for.
Yeah. It's like it's like watching James Bond or something in Hollywood and being like, "That's who I'm supposed to be as a man."
Yeah,
I'm supposed to be able to drive every vehicle and get every woman whilst drunk.
That's why I think sex ed needs to be shaken up and actually have the porn education bit to go. It is like watching James Bond. You know what I mean? It's not reality. It's not a documentary. So the difference between this is real porn and real sex. There's make love not porn. There's other sites out there that's real everyday sex, and should show the difference. But girls don't think they come out thinking they should make those noises, and men don't think that they should keep going for like 5 hours.
It's a big problem, and it's like I'm actually doing a workshop for you guys in a couple of weeks about improving the performance, and one of the stats I have in there is like the average man lasts about 5 minutes, right, of penetration. And anything above 1 minute is considered to be normal. But yet we have this idea from watching porn movies that you should be able to last hours. And though it is possible to last hours, right, it is possible to do so, but not in the way that we see sex in porn, which is like just going at it like as hard as you can. There's this whole beauty in like speeding up and slowing down and stopping and changing and like touching and holding, which is often completely lost for a lot of men, right? Because they've watched porn and they just see it in one way. So the performance anxiety piece, I think a lot of it is like reining in your expectations of what actual sex should be like, and realizing that the feelings you have of anxiety is quite normal. A lot of people experience this. Men, women feel it as well. Women have their own performance anxiety, which we're both lying there in bed with our performance anxiety, being nervous, kind of touching each other, fumbling a little bit, but we don't say anything. And if you just spend 2 minutes and it's like, I'm a bit nervous, it's, I haven't been in one for a while, and she's like, I feel the same, and I really like you, I really like you too. It's amazing how a lot of that anxiety just melts away in those moments.
And also don't think about that end point, because I think that's the part of the problem, isn't it? That too much, it's a real patriarchal thing, is what sex is. It's a penis and a vagina, and the end point is the man coming. And actually, you take that out, there's so much more. And actually, if you don't think of that bit, focus on everything else, you're going to be a god in the bedroom.
Like I've been like writing a workshop about foreplay, because it's like foreplay is this fumbling 5 minutes for a lot of men, and actually foreplay can last hours, and it can be, and there doesn't need to be any end point to that, because it doesn't end in anything. It is the play, in the same way as when we're with children, we played in a playground. We didn't have an end point of where we wanted to get to with our play. We just played because we enjoyed it, and we were, in the play together. And like foreplay and sex can be exactly the same thing.
Yeah, someone just like, what's your on the spot comms tip? So yeah, so in the moment, communicating, because you know there is that kind of that you don't want to be you know, if they're kind of ringing your clitoris like a doorbell, then you don't want to turn around rather than go, now that hurts. So go, oh, look, if you just move your, you know what I mean? There's ways of asking without upsetting, you know, and hurting someone's feelings, aren't there?
Yeah, I'd say that it's actually just saying, I'd really like it if you would. And then you don't even have to use words sometimes, actually. I think sometimes the best communication, there's no words involved. Words can cause all sorts of miscommunication. But if you just take someone's hand and you just slowly, you know, you slow it down a little bit like that, and then you groan slightly, and then you just let go, and he'll be like, I know what to do here. I've had instructions.
Yeah.
You know? Men love instructions. You give a man IKEA flat pack and he puts his hat on and he gets his drill and he wants to do it with the instructions because, you know, and a lot of the time...
We love to please.
You have to please.
Yeah.
We've never had, very few men have been with a woman and the woman said, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, I'd like you to do this.
And we're all different, really, that's the thing.
Yeah,
you know, actually,
completely.
women, you know, we're all over the place and have zones in different places, and so that you can't assume. I think that's part of the problem is we do assume that men just know the exact parts and stuff.
And they don't.
On that, going on the communicating bit, on how would you, if you know, if sort of you're in a relationship and you like in your head you want to try other stuff and you want to bring, you know, you want to bring up toys or you want to bring up BDSM or role play or stuff, and you're worried about getting a, you know, reaction from what's your advice on that, of like initiating these conversations on trying new things?
Yeah, I'd say it's amazing if you make it about an outside thing. I found that this works really well. So say for instance on Netflix there's a good, I think it's Explained, Sex Explained, and it's got like 4 episodes of various things about sex. Sit down and watch one episode together, and as you're watching it, they see something on the TV and you're like, oh, that sounds interesting, like I think I might like that. And you've opened up the space to go, I think I might like that, would you like to try that? You know, or it's like, oh, I've read this, I sent someone an article. You know, it's these sorts of ways where you're bringing it in and you're saying this is something I'd like to try or just something you're interested in. Because a lot of the time it's like, you know, when do you say you want to try something? Because people are like, oh, when do I mention this? It's like, a lot of the time, the worst time to do it is when you're in the bedroom and you're like, I want to do this right now. You want to maybe bring it up in a time when, you know, you're both comfortable and you're both relaxed and you're like, oh, there's something I'd really love to try. You know?
Or sending a text message when you know they're in a really important work meeting.
That's a great one. I think you have to write that down. I think that's the best thing. Emma, I feel like there's a confession there.
No, there isn't. It's just it's my... Although my one, I think I've done it a few times. It's just a picture of a boob going left or right. Those are good meeting ones.
That's a good one.
But on the so for Teresa, for example, so you know the toy chat's fine, but what about kind of bringing up the conversation of bringing an extra person in? So I've thought about having a threesome. What, you just come out and say that, or?
No, I think you have to work that. That one has to be a bit of a slow builder. You know, it's something you kind of, you know, maybe you're talking about fantasies because it's something that I've talked about with partners before, and it's something that you can't just. Sometimes we'll be thinking about something for months, weeks, years even, and the tension builds, and we just blurt it out, and it feels very abrupt for the other person. But if, like, you know, you've watched some porn together maybe, and you see 2 women and a man or 2 men and a woman, and you go, oh, that's really beautiful. You know, you start the conversation gently, you get into it, and then you say, you know, I'm really thinking about, you know, I know you like women. For instance, if you're a man, you're saying to your partner, you know, like, you like women. Is it something you'd like to do? Like, it's something that I would consider, but only, you know, obviously if it's something that you'd be comfortable with. And then you also go, maybe you'd like to have a threesome, and you think, okay, where can we start this in a light way? In a way that's light, that's like dipping our toe a little bit. It's a bit like how, you know, you have your in-person sex parties. How can you dip your toe in that? Maybe you go to a social. Maybe you know, go to an online party, you know? It's like, it's a good way to kind of dip your toes, and then you can take the step-by-steps to kind of get
Yeah. And in the same way on that, there's the approaching, because people often ask us an out and about, you know, I have guys who say, oh, you know, I don't think she'd like a KK party, or I wouldn't know. She wouldn't want to go and like, have you actually had a conversation? Have you? So that is kind of approaching that, going to KK party or a sex party, or how, yeah, what's your advice on that? Again, just, you know, gently just having the chat and.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this before as well, and actually one of the things I think as well was really important, if you do have an idea for something that you'd like to try, is you have to really own that yourself. Like, because if you have shame and guilt around something that you want to do, and then you're going to have a chat with someone about it, like that, you're already projecting some sort of rejection based on that shame and guilt. And I'd say you want to figure out why you feel you're not free to do that, because something that's interesting. And also, because I've had it asked of me, like, why did you pick me? And I literally in my mind was like, because I thought you'd enjoy it. Like, it's not, you know, I'm not manipulating. It's the truth. It's like, I feel it's a vibe thing. It's like, I feel it's something that you would enjoy. I know I would. And so then it's just taken very confidently, very straightforward, very authentic. It's just very straightforward.
Yeah. And I'd say also is, and I imagine that it goes both ways, because I know women want to go and they don't try to talk to their partners, but as a man, it's like knowing that, like you said, it's going to be something you can enjoy, but equally, it's like, what's your reasoning behind wanting to go? Because I think sometimes people have this idea of what sex parties are like. Like, it's like, I'm going to walk in a room and then I can just have sex with everybody, you know? Yeah. And in fact, it's nothing like that, right? It's very much a case of you know, you can go there and just watch. You can just go there and watch people, have a drink, connect with people, meet. It's like a bar where people are sometimes naked and sometimes they have sex. You know, it's not this kind of full-on 100 people orgy. And I think it's getting clear what it looks like to you and what your motivation is. And also making it enjoyable for both of you, an experience for both of you. I remember when I went with my one of my ex-partners, and we went to Berlin to Kit Kat Club. And initially I was like, oh, let's go to Berlin for the weekend. And she was like, yeah, that sounds great. And I said, oh, there's this club there called Kit Kat Club. And she's like, what's that? And I was like, oh, it's like a fetish sex club. And she was like, I'm not sure if I'd want to do that. And I said, okay, cool. That's great. I've just, you know, suggested it. She goes, why would you want to go? I was like, what an experience it would be, you know, to be there and see what happens. It'd be different from, you know, other places. I've read some reviews. It sounds quite interesting. And you make like a journey of it together. It's not just about you fulfilling some desire. It's about the two of you coming together and having a wonderful time together. Yeah. And also setting boundaries as well is a really good one. Making clear boundaries so that people feel safe in the container of going as well.
Yeah, that's what I would say with KM. Like, when you don't have to do anything, and my advice is like, just say exactly that. Let's go together, have some drinks, stay together, watch, keep our clothes on, and then see what it's all about. And we can leave at any point. And if we want to come back to another one and do more, we can. But that first one, just come and have some drinks and get a feel of it.
Soak up the atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly. It's that. What's your just a few more questions on, because I've got to bring it up, the game, because that was the book a while ago, and I remember reading it going, this is so bang on, because these will work, and I've had that done to me, and I've had that done to me. I think I read it in my 20s, and that done to me, and it's so right. And now I look back at it and go, yeah, it's so right, because they totally got on my weaknesses and manipulating. On that front.
Yeah, what's our thoughts on the game? Very entertaining book. I remember reading it. At the time I was reading it, I was like, I really want to improve my social skills and really improve my abilities with women and understanding what that life is about. However, one of the things for me which really stood out, which never clicked for me, was this idea of having to prepare everything and have a list of everything and know what you're going to say and always be ready with these canned lines and because my experience of guys that were good with women growing up was they never did this. Like they had fun and things seemed to be effortless. There was an effortlessness. So I was always, and hence it goes back to this idea of authenticity, and that's what actually I kept searching for what is the easy way. It just seemed too hard actually whatever they were doing. But then having, like with hindsight now of 10 plus years on, looking back, I think the actual there's positive and negative. So the positives, I think one of the things you like to mention is that actually it was nice for men to get together and do something and support each other. That's great. And that's really nice when men can support each other, because it's rare that we do that.
Not in competition.
Yeah, not sometimes, not in competition. yeah, like you're picking up women, right? But the negatives that we've seen, and what we sort of battle against, is this idea of having to remove yourself from the game. It's like, well, if I'm having to learn all these lines, where am I in all of this? And then who do I become if I meet you in a bar and I'm giving all these lines, and then where does this relationship go? Like how do we go from here? And a lot of men losing their sense of self, losing their inner confidence, and actually that's what this problem really is that men trying to avoid rejection, trying to avoid this thing, but they're never really learning who they are, what they're about, and actually just being themselves confidently. David and I are vastly different characters, but we come from a similar principle, and we share that principle of authenticity, and it allows us to build great connections with people that we meet, because we're real, we're not fake, and people can feel that.
I can feel it. But the games and stuff, there's also kind of things like, waiting 4 days or 5 days to text. And I remember when I first met my husband, and I said to him, I was like, he said, oh yeah, what's your number? And I said, if I get a message in 5 days time because you're playing some bullshit game, I said, I'm not interested. Not with a deal from like minute one, no games.
Yeah.
And he messaged me the next morning, said, do you want to go out for a drink tomorrow? And I was like, which to him felt alien because he was a complete player who usually all the game, the rules and everything. Yeah, you kept saying, I remember the first few days going, this is really weird. I don't normally text as much.
But the funny thing is about that particular rule as well, it's like so much of the game is reverse engineered from what successful guys are doing. And what successful guys are doing is they're actually having a fucking life. So they're living a life, and so they haven't got time to get back to you constantly, perhaps, but when they do have a moment, they'll get back to you. Like maybe, you're out living your life, you're doing stuff, you're not just waiting around. And that's what it's communicating. It's communicating that I'm a guy that has a life and I'm doing stuff. And actually it's a bit exciting, it's not just a guy who sat at home and just kind of like, when's she going to text me? Oh, she's done it. And that's what that's about. But then guys, again, trying to reverse engineer that, get scientific on there in the lab and be like, right, how do we mimic this? What are the guys doing? And it never works, as you say. It just frustrates people, because then they're just like, I don't know what this guy's about. Like, I message him, he messages back. And what we also find is it creates it creates weird behavior, because then it's not consistent. Like, guys would be like sometimes excited to message you back, and then other times they're playing the game. They can't, at the end of the day, we're a human being, so the humanness will come out. So, yeah. And
someone's just pointed out that some men are really shy, so they need a bit of guidance. So which is true, because if you're really shy and not, but that confident, you're like, I don't really know. Should I be messaging? Should I not be messaging? Should I wait? What's your advice on that? On that kind of dealing with that sort of the anxiety on actually communicating.
There's this wonderful podcast, Authentic Dating Something. And they've got hours of content. Like, guys, like, literally, I used to be that guy, fucking clueless. Like, literally, like, what do I do? Dave knows. Like, absolutely. Like, I knew a girl liked me. 3 months later, I would ask her out on a date. Like, it's just like, I was so clueless. And the reason why I said it is because there's so much that when we feel shy that we're not bringing ourselves out, and we're so concerned about the response, it's really good to get clear on who we are. Who am I? What do I want in a relationship? And really bring that forward, because in terms of rules and stuff, and like, it kind of gets in the way. Like, we can give you a framework, but it gets in the way if you're going to be like, and this is a problem with a lot of men. They want to paint by numbers.
Yeah.
So you give them rules and like, right, this is how we do it.
I can follow the rules.
Yeah. So, encouraging people to actually see their value, see their self-worth, and actually being shy, or let's say, put it in a different word, like being an introvert, maybe you're not so out there boisterous. That, again, that's me. Like I'm not always in this mode, and I'm very comfortable being shy. I'll sit and I'll just be like, right, I've got nothing to say right now. That's cool. That's okay. But if you're not comfortable, then there's like understanding, like, why is it you're not comfortable, and what is it you need to, where are you comfortable? What do you enjoy? And get into that.
Yeah. And I'd say that with being shy does not preclude you from being able to be good at dating or speaking to new people.
Yeah.
There's plenty of CEOs in the world, I imagine, who are quite shy people naturally, but they've come to decide that there's something they really love and they really want, and they're going to go towards that, right? And, ultimately, a lot of the guys who we used to coach, it's just they're very shy, and all they need is a little bit of guidance, a little bit of coaching. Like that's something we do now, where we coach men, and it's amazing when you just go, okay, what is it you're scared of? What is it you're worried about? Let's work through that. Why is it that you're shy? Why is it you want to speak to her? Okay, and when you start to like peel back a lot of the ideas and thoughts and feelings, you see behind there's the kind of a stray belief that no longer holds true anymore in the world. And it's when you shine a light on that for someone and they go, oh shit, that's not how the world is. That's not true anymore. That was true when I was 5 years old or when I was a 10-year-old, but that isn't true anymore. And then they're kind of unshackled, and they realize that they can go and talk to people, and that if people don't want to talk to them, it's okay. They're making a choice for themselves. Like, freedom in the world.
So, because it's that identity, isn't it? And I think men have that more ingrained in you, that your identity is your work, and it's money, and it's success,
your values and your performance.
So actually, a lot, you're much better at seeing that goal, work goal, being CEO, and so that's all the values are in that. So actually, kind of, you've got to stop and go, well, who am I?
Yeah.
And realize that actually that's not your identity, and work out what your identity is.
And start to like look at who you are. And I think this is one of the things, is that we've got this strong masculine energy in the world, which is like doing, direction, completing things, like doing tasks. And there's that more feminine energy, which is like emotions and feelings and enjoyment and fun, and they have real equal value, but we also have both of these things running through us. And a lot of the job for men, especially men who are in the business world and the corporate world, is to cultivate more of that feminine energy, right, in them, right? Because they're cultivating that masculine at work, in their racing or in their cycling. I find triathletes are particularly interesting people, because like you have to be hard ass to be doing a triathlete, right? But it's a triathlon. But it's like, can you cultivate tapping into emotions and having conversation and triggering other emotions in people, and learning things about people, because there's no goal there. There's just the experience, the moment by moment experience. And this, when men can kind of cultivate that side of them, that they can really connect with women in relationship and in sex, or even just at work.
Yeah, well, hopefully, the last 5 months have actually made people stop and realize that. And, you can already see it on the flexibility of like working from home, and, that the flexible working conditions stuff. And it's, which I get, that's something that we as women have like been shouting about for a decade to get us back to work, childcare and stuff. And like, suddenly I read some stuff today. It's as if there's been an epiphany in the last 6 months. And I'm, no, hello.
Attention.
There's a few men out there who are going, look, look what's occurring. Maybe we should think like this. You're like, no shit. But it's the same, isn't it? It's just sort of stopping, take stock of you. Someone said, when's the next party? When they stop taking social, I'm saying fucking because we haven't had any for 5 months. When they get rid of the social distancing,
is that it?
Then KK will be back. Yeah, we just can't,
You can't even have small private parties.
No, because it's a bubble thing. It's having too many people in one place. Our parties are in private venues. You know what I mean? It just can't.
Bar staff and stuff
You
like that.
just
So
can't.
30 people is nothing.
Exactly. When you add up the bar staff and the staff and stuff, you can't have that in households. And to be honest, I don't know what all the ins and outs are of households and what
It's
houses.
so confusing.
I've lost that. be honest. I think you could have a massage in a field outside, who knows? Just
I
not
think you
in,
could have a 30
I
people
don't
massage
know.
outside.
Exactly.
I
Who knows?
reckon
We
there's
all
some
have
people
found
over in Glastonbury with some spare fields going.
Okay, so no, we've got loads of virtual. We've got all the virtual parties every weekend and workshops. And so, just quickly, because Instagram will cut us off in about 3 minutes. When's the workshop you're doing for us in 2 weeks? Is it 2 weeks or next week?
Yeah, it's on the 16th of September.
And what's the main thing behind that? Just so people know.
So I'm going to be talking about performance anxiety, how to get over performance anxiety, and I'm going to talk about sexual performance for men, so how to last longer. And it's all natural techniques, stuff that I've learned. Like I've been practicing and learning about tantra for the last couple of years, and it's all very natural techniques that a man can learn to. You don't need to last for 4 hours, but you can, and it goes from being ejaculation, which is kind of an involuntary thing for a lot of men. It just kind of builds up and happens, to it be something you can choose, and you can make a conscious choice and go, I'm going to do this. I'm going to ejaculate now.
Nice, clever, cool. Would you know what? Thank you so much for coming on and chatting.
Well, it's been
And if anyone
pleasure.
go and listen to the Authentic Dating Series podcast, which is a very interesting stuff. And I'll see you for a real drink in the real world at some point.
Hopefully, yes.
We're back. Cool.
Thanks for having us.
Guys,
ciao, ciao.
bye. They were really cool. We'll be back next Wednesday with Jessica Parker, who's doing some of our workshops. In fact, I think she's currently middle of vulva massage at the moment workshop. But I'll see you guys soon. See ya.